What's up, everybody? It's Erin.
And Nicole, this is Dude, That's Fucked Up.
Welcome, guys.
Oh, we're so happy you're here.
We are psyched. Can't you tell by my voice?
We're psyched. We're stoked. We're elated. We're tingling.
Jumping for joy.
We're jumping for joy. We are on the precipice of a full explosion.
Oh.
Mind blown.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh. Oh my God, you guys, this episode today is so gnarly. Woo.
Yeah. We both were just like, reading through the description of today, like what we're going to talk about today. It's a lot. Just be warned. It's pretty graphic.
Yeah, there's certain parts that are very graphic and insane and woof.
Wolf City.
But yeah, we'll talk about that. We were just, but before we do, we were just shooting the shit, talking about this crazy weather we're having.
Oh my God.
Where my dad is like hunkered down up in the mountains, waiting for the snowstorm for the fucking blizzard of 23.
Oh my God. It's the one we've been waiting for all year.
Sunday. I don't know.
Snow day. Yeah. It's wild here too. I mean, I had to like spray my hair with water because I was wearing a beanie today. I went on a walk and I was like, I'm going to be cold. I walked to the pottery studio. I know. I was like, oh my God, it's like 50 degrees. I better put on my Patagonia layer and my jean jacket.
Oh my God.
And I'm wearing a fucking wool sweater. So I like walked myself down to the pottery studio, which it is cold, you know.
Yeah.
It's cold for here.
Yeah.
And we're just not. Oh, I was going to wear my big puffy, like my huge coat that I bought in Utah a couple months ago. But I was like, there's nowhere to put it at the studio. So
yeah. And people will be like, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. It's really
50 degrees, not negative 50.
Well, it's like so fucking cold in our house. Like Pete doesn't turn on the heater. And so it's like I expect when I go outside, it's going to be way colder. No, I walk outside. It's gorgeous. The sun's shining. I'm like feeling the warmth of the sun. I'm like, why is it so fucking cold in our house?
Well, you know, it's a lot of, I don't know. It's winter time and
it's winter, yeah.
It's just we're really getting it finally here.
Yeah.
This is like the final winter storm, I hope. But like literally there's going to be a blizzard up in our hometown, so
yeah, but
Godspeed to all the people out there.
It's not the last because there were years on like Mother's Day when it was snowing up there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And it's like fucking May, dude, and you're just like, oh shit. So, and
bullshit.
It's still only February.
Yeah. Ugh.
But it's gonna be the worst one probably of the year.
Yeah, and this storm's just gonna like roll through the entire country. So.
Oh my God. Oof. Sorry, everyone.
Hope y'all hunker down and got your supplies and your, like, I remember in DC, like we had a couple like big snowstorms, and one of them DJ was out of town for, and I just was like, I went to the store. I got all of my favorite foods. I got all the wine, like all my wines, all my foods, and just had the best time hunkering down at home and then like walking through the snow to the bars to meet up with friends and stuff. It was a great time.
Yeah. The only storm I remember like really prepping for was like Hurricane Sandy when we lived in Queens.
Yeah, Hurricane Sandy. Yeah.
I remember being on the phone with my grandpa like the day it was coming. Like it was just starting to get windy and stuff, and you know everybody was like freaking out, and he's like, "What's it like there?" And I was going to the supermarket just to get regular stuff. And I was like, I like walked in and he's like, "Are people like buying out the grocery stores?" And I was like, "No, I'm like looking around." And then I look over and like there's no bread. And I was like, oh, there's no bread. And my grandpa's like, yeah, get some food. I was like, okay.
Yeah, you're like, huh?
Yeah, I'm like, didn't know it was a thing. All right. And it obviously was bad. And
yeah, that was a gnarly storm.
Yeah, it was gnarly. Yeah.
I remember Irene in DC was pretty wild. Yeah.
Ooh,
that was a good one.
It's so weird. It's like so weird. Pete and I have been in California now for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be 11 this June. And it's like flown by.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just feel like I have and it's that thing of like, we spent so many, they weren't a lot of years in New York, but like 5 of my very formative years, like my like mid 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like it holds like this space. Do you feel like that about DC, where it's like it holds this big chunk of time for me, but really it was a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things?
I mean, for me, DC was like all of my, my mid 20s through my early 30s or mid 30s,
Yeah, true.
Like,
you were there
longer. I was there for over a decade,
Yeah.
And it's where, I met my husband and had my first kid, and
that's
so
wild.
it's big. It's like a big part of
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's not as big of a chunk of time for me. It's only half of the time, like 5 years, but still it feels like a lot.
That was and you were there from like college.
Yeah, right after college. Yeah.
So that's very formative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Wow.
Anyway, well, this episode has nothing to do with weather or formative year. Well, I don't know. Could be, but I don't know. This has a lot to do with a brain, a very lucky brain.
Today's topic recommended by a listener.
Mm-hmm.
They recommended this person, like this historical figure that we're going to talk about. They recommended him because we did a 2-parter on P.T. Barnum.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like loosely related to P.T. Barnum. They worked together for a brief period of time.
Yeah,
you could say.
And also, I think we somehow like stumbled upon him while we were doing research. One of us found something interesting about him while we were doing research for our Patreon episode about the history of swear words or something.
Oh, okay. I think this was you, because I don't remember. I have no recollection.
Yeah, I don't know. I went through the old notes and stuff just because it was tickling. This guy was tickling a little memory thing in my brain. So I was like, where have I heard this name before? And sure enough,
it's the lead singer of a steampunk band.
Yeah. Totally.
It's a speakeasy in a hotel somewhere.
Yeah,
they
only serve absinthe. Yeah. You guys, today we're talking about the one and only Phineas Gage.
Oh my God. It is. The one and only for sure.
Dude, this shit's crazy. This man survived a very traumatic brain injury on the job back in the 1800s and lived to tell the tale and lived for several years, like a pretty almost normal life. So yeah. But we're going to talk about how it happened, what happened, his injury. Yeah. That's the very graphic part will be when we talk about his injury, obviously. So Yikes. You're being warned now. It is unpleasant.
What's the opposite of like a coochie tingle? A fucking butthole blast? Like it's like whatever the feeling is down there.
It's a butthole clench, I feel like,
right?
Like
like a cooter.
Like a grimace.
It's like
a grommet grimace. I don't know.
Yes, it's a grommet grimace. Is that what's this? Is that a grimace?
That's a grimace.
Oh, okay.
It's like somewhere between a smile and a ooh.
Yeah. It's a coochie. Ooh. You don't want
It's a coochie clench.
It's a coochie clench, and a grommet grimace. But they happen at the same time. Mm-hmm. So just
it's a whole pelvic floor punch.
Yeah, I don't know if you have testicles or a penis, what happens around there when this sets in, but please let us know.
Yeah, it's like
as we're describing.
It curls up inside of you or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, it's very graphic and very horrible. Yeah. What happens to this man? We will tell you about it right now.
Oh my God. Okay. This man, we don't know a lot about him before his accident, which is fine because I don't think it's very interesting. But
I think he was definitely always hot. Definitely always
this
like
man is hot. Honestly,
Like,
someone
you-
should write a biopic and do a movie because I want to see this hot man. Except then skip over the part where he's injured.
yeah.
Just tell me when it's happening. I'll leave the theater. I'll come back when he's
Yeah.
healing. I don't want to see that part.
Like I feel like Zac Efron could play this man, or you know, somebody of that like caliber of hotness, because this man like was he was like,
I know.
who
1997 Billy Zane.
okay, all right.
Like that, like the facial features.
I think I'm even thinking like a what's the guy's name that plays Superman?
Christopher Reeve.
No,
He'd
like
be
the
good.
yeah, but he's dead.
He's
No,
dead.
no, like the
Current one?
the current one.
The one you love?
I love. I think he's
Tom
hot.
Holland?
No, that's Spider-Man.
Oh my God.
Girl,
I'm tired. Wait,
what's his name? He was like
Superman.
Yeah,
Henry Cavill.
Henry Cavill.
Yes, he has the
He is-
jawline. Yes,
he has the
yes.
jawline.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
You know what I'm saying? It's Henry Cavill.
It's Henry Cavill.
He is giving Henry Cavill.
Yeah, I feel like Zac Efron right now too beefy. He's beefed up a bit. Like he's very like thick. His neck is very thick now. He's very like hulked out. And this guy needs to be like very. Well, no,
like
he wasn't tall.
1800s
like jawline.
strapping. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, this guy, Phineas Gage, was one of 5 children. He was born in 1823 in Grafton County, New Hampshire, to Hannah and Jesse Gage. Beyond that, we don't really know much about his upbringing, but aside from the fact that he was literate, which I don't know why we need to know that, but I guess it says something about like the types of jobs he had. Because he was like a foreman. He was he was middle management. And he was very competent by all measures. And in July of 1848, he was employed on construction of the Hudson River Railroad near Cortland Town, New York. And there his career flourished. He went from regular foreman to blasting foreman, which is like, yeah.
You got to be like the top of the heap for that kind of a job, because this was like it was serious shit. You're dealing with explosives. You have to be responsible for an entire crew. You have to keep them safe, and you have to know what the fuck you're doing. So
totally,
I think he had like a big crew of people that he worked with that respected him, that were like he was in charge of. So yeah.
Totally, yeah. And he kind of bopped around all like these railroad areas that were being built. He was on lots of jobs. Well
liked, gainfully employed all the time, which is like a good mark of his character, because people would just flop around all the time. There was no way of like knowing if people were like going to be good workers. There was no such thing as like
everybody's a grifter.
Yeah, everybody's a grifter. There's no like,
you don't have an online footprint. There's no way to be like, where the fuck were you between this time and this time? And
nobody's like on fucking like tracking your resume on Indeed or on fucking LinkedIn.
Yeah, there's no resume. You're just like, I have 2 hands and I can stand all day.
Look at this body.
Look at this body. Yeah,
I've been working on the railroad, baby.
All the live long day.
I've been blasting through this town.
Oh, I heard you were looking for a blasting foreman. Well, I'm ready to blast the shit out of this.
Look at these forearms.
Oh,
that's a forearm right there. I don't know. I like bicep. No,
we're trying. Okay, but yes, he was, like, by all accounts, a very hardworking and a very strapping and energetic young man, which is why we were saying hot men should play him. Okay, so physician John Martin Harlow, who wasn't like his childhood physician or anything, but he knew him before the incident we're going to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
He described 25-year-old Gage as a perfectly healthy, strong, and active young man possessing an iron will as well as an iron frame. That means muscles, baby. He had a muscular system unusually well developed.
Okay, Mr. Dr. Harlow. Really getting into it.
He had a
Unusually
muscular
well
system unusually well developed. And he, having had scarcely a day's illness from his childhood.
I would say this man is strapping indeed. I'm just a doctor. I'm just describing this young man.
Strapping. The musculature of the lines of his form. He is quite the foreman, if you know what I mean. Strapping.
All right, Dr. Harlow.
I know. Okay, so but I love it because it's giving like Brom Bones. Do you know Brom Bones from Sleepy Hollow?
No.
Oh. Brom Bones is the hot one that Katrina Van Tassel's like starting to get with, but then Ichabod Crane shows up, and Ichabod's like a weirdo,
skinny ass
and
body,
and she's
emo
like,
ass shit, yeah.
She's like, have you seen him? He's a skinny little man. I feel like he has a big dick. So then she
I feel like
gets rid
I
of
could break him in half.
yeah. So then she's like, later, Brom Bones, and then we think Brom Bones dies from the Headless Horseman, or I don't know. I don't know what happens to him. It depends on the version you're watching, I guess. But anyway, I'm here for it because I love a Sleepy Hollow fantasy. And Brom Bones, some reason, even in the cartoon, I'm always like,
hey,
what's with Ichabod? Why are we all pretending? Okay.
Yeah.
Brom Bones is where it's at. Look at this man. He's like lifting barrels of maple syrup and like doing lumberjack shit.
Yeah. Ichabod. Like,
no.
come on.
I want to ride Brom's bone. You know what I mean?
I don't want an Ichabod. I want a Brom Bones. I don't know.
To jump Bronze Bones. Okay. Anyway, so his employers described him again like as a most efficient and capable foreman, a shrewd, smart businessman, very energetic and persistent in executing all his plans of operation. And yeah, like you can't just employ any old, Joe off the street or whatever. Like you can't just hire like some old meathead, like you need someone who's got the brains and the brawn to be able to work with explosives because this shit is scary.
Yeah. And we're like really harping on this because you'll see later on in this episode.
Yeah. Okay. So just to lay the groundwork, okay. So when you're prepping the ground for a railroad bed, and this is what he was working on, leading up to and like during the job he was on when he was in this accident. It requires boring a huge hole into the ground, and then you add blasting powder and a fuse into the hole, and then you pack a bunch of sand and clay above the hole so that the powder is contained like, it lower into the ground, and that directs it down into the surrounding rock so that they could like, get rid of rock and shit so that they could lay down the railroad. And so Gage, that's what he was doing. And he was such a go-getter that he even commissioned a custom-made tamping iron.
Is like a big rod that like helps you like get the hole going, and then it helps tamp down all the explosives and dirt and sand and all that.
Yeah. And so, so you put the sand in and then you just like ram it. It's a ramrod,
Yeah, yeah.
And he, and it's to set the explosive charge. And so he had one commissioned by a local blacksmith that was like fit his frame, it was like a weight and size that worked for him. And it made him like very fast and efficient. And I don't know why. I think it's because I just watched the Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat episode last night of Seinfeld. But I'm thinking of this as like a pimp cane for Phineas Gage. Like it's his little flourish. Like,
yes.
know, like he's like, hey, this is like my thing, and then it's like is Phineas here? You know, like when you're walking by the saloon or whatever. I don't know what time period this is, but it's like leaning outside against the like window or whatever. It's like, oh, Phineas is here, and all the girls are like, Phineas.
Phineas's rod is here.
Did you all see Phineas? Oh, he's here.
Such a dumb voice.
I'm trying to get to Smee. Put on your faces, girls. Smee. But it's like, Phineas.
Oh my God.
Hey, Marigold, do you know who's here today? Phineas.
You're Finny. Do you think the girls called him Finny?
Oh. Finn? Or maybe just Finn?
Finn. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Whatever.
Well, he was hot. He had this cool ramrod, special made. One end was pointy, I think, to like get the hole, like to start the hole. Like a, kind of javelin-esque kind of thing. I'm making like a not
Stop
good.
Jerking off the invisible dick next to your face.
Yeah, I know. Oh God.
Oh no.
That's an old classic.
It is so funny.
Okay. Yeah, one end was pointy to like jam into the dirt and make a big hole. Mm-hmm. And then the other end was like, like
blunt,
normal, like blunt,
like flat.
Yeah. To like use it as a ramrod. So he had this like custom thing, and I do think that's very cool of him.
Me too. I like it. I like that he was like
so dedicated to his craft.
It's dapper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's dedicated.
It's dedicated. I like it. Yeah.
Okay. Well.
And it will come in very handy for
it was
not hand. I don't think handy is the right word, but
it fit
it'll
like
prove
a glove.
And the design of it will prove to be a godsend for this accident. If you can call it that.
Right. I mean, the godsend would be this didn't happen in the first place, but if it's gonna happen, he survives it because of the shape.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the incident we're going to talk about, and it's graphic. So if you don't like it, then maybe skip ahead a little bit. But we're not going to get like too gross. I mean,
I will. I'll say all about it.
Okay.
I'll say something. I'll say something before I get into the.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so on September 13th, 1848, he was overseeing a group of men blasting rock for the Rutland and Burlington Railroad, and this was south of Cavendish, Vermont. And around 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon, so like, it's still light out. It's a full day. He's putting in a full day's work. Mm-hmm. But I feel like you get, it's after lunch. You're getting towards dinner. You're probably getting hungry again. You're getting a little tired. This is always the time of the day when I'm least.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the final like blasts they're gonna do of the day, like the final like thing they're gonna explode. So they're just like, all right,
they're just packing. Yeah, they're
done it a million times. They're like, all right, let's just do this last one and be done for the day, and talking about where they're gonna go drink afterwards or something.
Sure. Yeah, they're all talking, and
they're loose.
He kind of, his attention wanes a little bit, and he gets a little bit distracted by his crew, and he like turns to chime in whatever they're talking about. And as he's looking over his right shoulder and he starts to get chatty, that's the very second that he's still tamping. So he's still like ramming this rod into the ground over this explosive powder and, whatever. And it's unknown if maybe he forgot to put the sand in before he started doing that, like the sand and clay, or if he was just ramming the powder. But his custom tamping iron sparked against some rock and the powder exploded.
Oof. Bad news when you're holding a fucking javelin in your hand, essentially.
Dude, the tamping iron blasted up from the hole. It entered the left side of his face in an upward direction. just forward of the angle of his lower jaw.
Like,
and right
here.
Like, yeah, under it went over his lower jaw and up through the roof of his mouth, like behind his eye. So his mouth
like
was open.
It was under his like cheekbone, I think, right?
Yeah.
And oh God, it's just all of it's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. And then it passed behind the left eye through the left side of the brain, and then it popped out completely.
Like it flew out of his head. It just went.
Flew. Yeah. No, it shot out through the top. Yeah, this is all happening in like milliseconds.
This thing was 3 feet long.
Dude. It
flew out of his head.
It was 3 feet long. Okay, it was 3 feet 7 inches long. It was 1 inch and 1.25 inches in diameter, and this thing fucking weighed over 13 pounds, and it shot up through his open jaw into his skull and out the top of his head. It flew 80 feet before landing on the ground, smeared with blood and brain.
Brain came out of his fucking head.
80 feet away. 80 feet away. The trajectory of this. Oh my God. And his mouth was fucking open. This is one of the details for me that just make. It
went like this, right? It went,
yeah. Like it went through his open jaw.
Good Lord, man. Up through his skull, the bottom of his skull.
Yeah.
Out through the top.
Yeah.
Through his brain, out through the top.
It's
horrendous. It's horrifying.
So bad. And like you were saying, the shape of it was like the reason it went clear through so quickly is because the pointy end, like you said, went in first. Mm-hmm. And I think he defo would have died if the blunt end would have hit him.
Oh, it would have just exploded his whole head.
Which, yeah, because the pointy end was like very tapered. You know, it's a point. So, I mean, and listen, it wasn't good. Like, he was thrown onto his back. He had he was convulsing. Like, his arms and legs were convulsing. He was having a moment. And then, like, a few minutes later, he just stopped, fucking got up and started talking normally to everyone, like, standing around. Like,
can you fucking imagine? First of all, Whitney, you're like, oh, he's dead.
He's
dead.
Yeah.
And then he just sits up and he's like, hey, guys, like,
oh, my God.
Am I bleeding? And they were like, yeah.
Yeah, why am I on the ground? Hey, guys, why did I pass out on the ground? It's like, man, because your brain's in chunks 80 feet away, dude.
They're like, oh, hi. All right, let's get you to the doctor. Come over here, sir.
Okay, normally I would never say this about someone's traumatic moment, but in that moment, no one's as traumatized as the people who all just saw that, including the man who just got the spike through his fucking head, because he doesn't even know.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, what's going on? You know, and everyone else is like, holy fucking shit, like, dude.
He's like, I feel weird.
I feel weird, and everyone's like, I want to die. I just saw that man's brain spiked.
Yeah,
dude.
It's so gnarly. It's so fucking gnarly. And this is where it's going to get real graphic, okay? Like, that was already pretty graphic, but okay, it's going to get worse. So just hang on, all right?
Yeah.
Fast forward if you need to. His crew gets him into an ox cart and takes him down to the local doctor.
He's alert and sitting up and just riding to the doctor like, all right, I guess I could take a quick break to go get a Band-Aid or something.
Yeah, he's like, I think I'm bleeding a little bit. Like, I should get this bleeding stopped, and then we'll go grab a drink after, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, man, okay.
Yeah, just bopping around on an ox cart 3/4 of a mile into town to see the doctor.
This shit's so gnarly. And so he's bleeding all over. He gets into town. I think like they initially like they're fetching the doctor, and he's like, they like try to get him like laid down on a bed and like in a hotel or something. And as they're describing it, as they like come to get him, and as it's described, the bed was just covered in blood, completely covered in blood. It was like a, murder scene basically. And he's starting to get a little lightheaded from loss of blood.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get a physician who I think was like a like
Foot
battlefield.
doctor?
He was like a battlefield like doctor, and he like, you know, he was like knew how to get trauma triage going, but I don't think he was like a specialist in brain injuries by any stretch of the imagination.
Nobody was at this point.
Well, there was the later doctor who comes after
Harlow, that we already talked about a little bit. He had more experience, with
studying the brain, not necessarily dealing with traumatic brain injuries such as this. I don't think anybody, like you're saying, anybody seen anything like this before of somebody who'd had such a traumatic brain injury and was not only alive but like totally coherent and talking and
like
conscious,
fully cognitive.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So like they get him to this place. The first doctor comes and he's like just the doctor nearby probably in case like these men are getting
burns.
Yeah.
Blast a finger off or something.
Right. It's like, but then they also called the Dr. Harlow, the physician we talked about earlier, that had been like treating all these men more regularly and was kind of like the more senior doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And so this other physician that showed up first, this was like 30 minutes after the accident, like literally from the moment it happened. It's only been 30 minutes. This guy pulls up, Edward H. Williams, and he finds Gage sitting in a chair outside the hotel. And he's like, okay. He said he was greeted with one of the great understatements of medical history. And I think there's nothing understated about what he described. So I will give you the honor because it is so much.
Yeah. So Edward H. Williams, and this is all his account of it.
Yeah.
Says, quote, "When I drove up, Gage said, 'Doctor, here is business enough for you.' I first noticed the wound upon the head before I alighted from my carriage, the pulsations of the brain being very distinct. The top of the head appeared somewhat like an inverted funnel. I know, this is where I was reading it. I was like, oh God. This is the butthole clench right here.
Oh my God, my butt is so tight right now.
I know. Somewhat like an inverted funnel, as if some wedge-shaped body had passed from below upward." Okay, so he's describing it like
like a fucking clown hat. Oh, no, it exploded out. Yeah, an inverted oh my God.
Or like that. I don't know. No, it's like this. Yeah.
But a funnel is already this shape, right?
Yeah.
But no, it had to have been like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. It's fucking flopped out and not.
His brain is visible.
His brain's pulsating. It's like Mars attacks.
Yeah.
He just has a clear view into this man's head.
I just kept picturing that scene from Hannibal where he like cuts.
Oh yeah. Ray
Liotta's head. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Okay. A wedge-shaped body had passed from below upward. Mr. Gage, during the time I was examining this wound, was relating the manner in which he was injured to the bystanders. I did not believe Mr. Gage's statement at the time, but thought he was deceived. Sir, you're talking to a man whose brain is literally out. How do you not believe what he's saying? Like,
that's so dumb. That's the dumbest part of this whole thing. He's like, I didn't believe him because his brain was out, and I thought, what an idiot. Like, what? How do you think this happened?
How do you think it happened?
Yeah.
Mr. Gage persisted in saying that the bar went through his head. Mr. G got up and vomited. Okay, this is really bad. This is so gnarly.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm so sorry, everybody. This is very much a content warning, so get ready. Mr. Gage persisted in saying that the bar went through his head. Mr. G got up and vomited. The effort of vomiting pressed out about half a teacup full of the brain through the exit hole at the top of the skull, which fell upon the floor.
In the notes, I just wrote no. It is.
I was gasping reading this fucking account.
But also, okay, I do want to just revel in the fact that he used a teacups, like half a teacups, like worth, like measurement. You know, he wasn't like a dime size or like an inch.
I feel like that's like what a cup was though at the time. So half a cup.
Oh, okay. Still, it feels like the wrong measurement to be using for brain. Like it's a food measurement. It's in the kitchen. Why are we talking? Why don't bring it into this?
I don't like it. Okay,
I don't
this
like
is
it.
So gnarly. And I'm just gonna go a little bit further since we're on the topic and we're all gagging together.
Yeah.
Okay, so the reason why he's vomiting so much is because the hole in the bottom of his skull that was caused by the tamping rod going through his head, it was the blood from the wound was getting into his sinuses basically.
Yeah.
His sinuses are right there, and the hole from that caused the blood to just go straight into his sinuses. So he was like, and brain was coming into his fucking
throat hole. Yeah.
From the injury, from the wound. And he was literally gagging on his blood and brain and it was making him vomit. So,
oh my God.
Holy
like
fuck.
every 15 minutes. Like,
yeah.
Talk about adding insult to injury. Truly. It's like this poor man.
It's so insane. And not only that, he had pieces of skull fragments in his brain that they had to remove or else, you know, it would become infected. And so they're trying to, so by this time, Dr. Harlow comes and is like, all right, holy fucking shit. I can't believe this is like so gnarly.
He's like, I've seen 2 brains in my life. I'll do that or whatever. You know, he's like, I'll get in there. It's so, I mean, obviously I didn't choose the profession of a doctor or a surgeon, but like I can't see anyone wanting to. It's so upsetting to me. I can't believe, okay, this is also very triggering to me from my jaw surgery because there's like parts of it, I don't know, just like the open jaw and stuff, where I'm like, someone like broke my jaw off my face, cut it off, and like it was still tied on with like skin and, you know,
like to be muscles. A surgeon, you have to be like,
you have to be okay with this shit.
You have to compartmentalize and be like, this is a piece of meat now. You know what I mean? This isn't a human. I don't know.
It's so wild.
And so Dr. Harlow comes and he's like, all right, I got to get these bone and I'm going to tell you exactly what he had to do to get these bone fragments out. And it's really fucking horrible. So bear with me. He took one finger and the other through the wound and was like Chinese finger trap getting
my God.
Like trying to pull out with his fucking fingers. He didn't have any, I mean, he had some equipment or whatever, but he had to feel where the bone fragments were. So he could only use his fingers to do that. So he was like fingering his fucking brain from both sides. While he's awake, this man.
Dude, this is where we talk about how the brain is so powerful. And like, you know, Juliana Kopka or whatever, you know, how your brain can just like block all this out. I don't know if this was blocked out for Phineas, but I
Probably
hope
not.
some of it.
I mean, and it's like this kind of, you know, like even modern day brain surgery,
you're awake.
You keep you awake so that they can make sure that your you know, brain function is like still, like you're still able to like, you know, talk and you know.
I think we were 19 when my cousin had a tumor growing on her like occipital bone or something. It was like under close to the brain. Or it was on the brain. I don't know. Anyway, she had to have they peeled her scalp off and like went in and she had to be awake. And it was like, so gnarly. My God. If she's listening, hi.
Bless
Love you. But
Yeah.
yeah, dude, it's like fucking wild. Like what, like, I don't know. I just can't. And you do it because you have to, like you think I could never do something like this or sit there while this is happening or whatever, but you do it because you have to. Like, what other choice do you have? It's wild.
And he survived the initial, work that Dr. Harlow did. And like, I think he was fine for a while, but then.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess Harlow, we should also mention when he like took charge of this and was like rooting around in his brain or whatever, he was like, this is what he said about it. Cause we read, the other Dr. Williams's statement, but Dr. Harlow said, "You will excuse me for remarking here that the picture presented was, to one unaccustomed to military surgery, truly terrific." I think he means horrific.
Well, terrorific.
Oh, okay.
Like
yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. But in modern times, we use terrific as a good thing. Okay. But he continued, "But the patient bore his sufferings with the most heroic firmness. He recognized me at once and said he hoped he was not much hurt."
Oh my God. He sounds like a little kid.
I know.
Almost.
He's like, "I hope I'm not too hurt." He seemed to be perfectly conscious, but was getting exhausted from the hemorrhage. His person and the bed on which he was laid were literally one gore of blood. So that's like what you were talking about, where it was just like so much blood.
Yeah.
Okay, so like you said, Harlow like rooted around in his brain, pulled out the fragments of skull. I just said they treated the fucking huge holes in his head, and also the burns surrounding those holes.
He was burned from the
explosion. Okay, on his forearms, on his face, around the hole. Like it was bad. A spike through the head is not traumatic enough. Also needs burns. Then the physicians like place some adhesive straps, which are like Band-Aids, I guess, to like pull the wounds together and try and get some healing going, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they put a little nightcap on him, which there's a drawing on Wikipedia. It's like so cute, and it had like a little hole for like drainage. And I think I don't know how much fluids drained out. I don't know what the state of it was after that, but we'll just leave it at that, I suppose. And then he was okay. At this point, I also
relatively fine. Like
he was because he was still talking and stuff. But everybody's like, this fucker's gonna die, right? Like, there's no way this man survives this. The fact that he's even still talking to us is insane.
Yeah, and they were like, all right, we're going to do everything we can to make sure, like, your shit doesn't get infected, because that was so he's still alive, but the continual worry was that this, like,
gangrene.
This area was going to get infected, like a fucking literal brain spilling out of his skull was still happening, because after an injury like that, your brain continues to swell. Yeah. And now the interesting thing about this is because he had not just the hole at the top, but the hole inside of his, in his mouth. In the bottom of his skull, where it went in. Yeah. That was also letting stuff drain too. Now he's lucky that a lot of the fluid surrounding his brain didn't drain out into his sinuses for whatever reason, but anything that needed to like any additional swelling that was happening and additional liquid that needed to drain out, like any blood or whatever, could also drain out not just the top but also the bottom hole, which is something that a lot of people didn't have. So that was like almost lucky in a way.
Lucky, and also completely coincidental that he didn't get more infections from the mouth hole, because your mouth has so many germs. Yeah. That it's also incredible that like that. I mean, it could have led to, we'll talk about it in a second because he had some issues, but
another thing too is that he was really lucky. I mean, all of this is like luck on top of luck.
Right. Yeah.
But the tamping rod itself, that he commissioned, was he wanted it to be really smooth, and the metal was like very smooth. So when it went through, it didn't have like anything that could,
snag
or like tear off, like a loose piece of metal or something. It was very smooth. So it just went clean through.
Oh my God.
So that was really lucky. It wasn't like serrated in any way where it could like make a jagged, kind of wound or anything like that.
It was just like cauterized almost. Like,
yeah, it just went
yeah. Oh my God.
As clean as it could possibly be. Yeah, gnarly.
Okay. Well, he was obviously in shock through like a lot of this to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
But then everyone was like extra baffled when they were like, okay, well, we're going to call your mom. We're going to call your friends. Like your coworkers want to come see you. They, everybody's thinking he's dying. And he's like, no, why? Don't call my mom. Like, don't bother her. I'm going to be back at work in a couple days. I'll see her next weekend or whatever. And everyone's like, pardon?
Yeah. Like, buddy.
Yeah.
We're going to call your mom.
Yeah. And they did. And it was good because over the next few days, the trauma of the injury caught up, of course. And he was having issues like speaking and making sense of things. And he was very steadily declining. And this is when they were like, okay, maybe this isn't going to be, it's not going to work out how we thought it might because he was talking and now he's not. And then about 12 days after the incident, he was like semi-comatose. He was kind of like drifting in and out. The brain injury started protruding out of the top of his head again. His eye socket that, it went behind his left eye, that eye socket was like very swollen. And this is the worst part for some reason.
It's bad.
His head wound and his breath were putrid. Like people were like death. Like I can smell death on you. The what is it? Necrotic flesh. Mm-hmm. It's like the mouth and the head. Like people are just smelling death. They ordered him a casket. Like they had funeral plans lined up. Like it's fucking gross. And I just want to read.
Oh, this is so gnarly. This is so gnarly. This is again another content warning.
Yeah, another
Fast forward
content
if you
warning.
need to.
This one somehow is not. I mean, it is very upsetting to me also, but it's fine. Okay, I'm actually like impressed with this because they call him Physician Harlow, Dr. Harlow. Mm-hmm. He kind of knew what to do. So he inspected the wound and he. Okay.
This is bad.
This is his report of what happened. So, after inspecting the wound, he cut off the fungi which were sprouting out from the top of the brain and filling the opening, and made free application of caustic, in other words, crystalline silver nitrate, to them. He applied crystalline silver nitrate to like the areas where he cut out the fungus. With a scalpel, I laid open the front. With the scalpel, I laid open the frontal's muscle from the exit wound down to the top of the nose. So like he cut open his flesh in the front of his head, and there's a big scar there after this. And immediately there were discharged 8 ounces, which is 250 milliliters of ill-conditioned pus with blood and excessively fetid. Basically, he was like, I know what this stink is. It's a big fucking infection. There's a pustule under here. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to find it. Remember, this is a doctor that was also rooting around 2 fingers in both sides.
Chinese finger trapping his brain.
Yeah, he was just like fucking doing that thing where you are trying to pick up a dime in between your car seat and the console.
Oh my God.
That's a Kevin James stand-up bit. That's very good. But there's just something right there and you're trying to get it. Okay, so he already did that. And then he's like rooting around in there for like a fucking boil of some kind. He's just like fucking opens this guy's face flaps. And
Dr. Pimple Popper, eat your heart out.
It's so upsetting. Okay. And so he fucking squishes that out. It's very satisfying. And they're good. Okay.
He gets the infection out, saved
gets
this
the
man's
infection.
life.
And it just so happened that Harlow had a lot of experience with abscesses, probably from, the trauma, the types of trauma that he was treating as a doctor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He just knew, like, oh, this is an infection and it needs to be abscessed or whatever. Like, you got to squeeze it and get it out. And so that was like a little over 12 days. About another 12 days later, on the 24th day, Gage was able to get up out of bed and walk to the chair in his room. And a month later, he was bopping around the house and then around the piazza, which is just like a fancy word for outside, where the hotel was in the little town square. And from then on, he was pretty much fine. He did catch a little bit of a cold when he was out bopping around. And the doctor happened to be away for like a week. He was traveling. And so Gage was just like,
they were like biggest problem after he was like healed. Well, sort of healed from the injury was like keeping him contained. Like he just wanted to get up and bop around, and he was like restless. Like he just like,
he's like our aging parents where it's like, you can't do that anymore. Like and he's like, no, I'm fine. And then it's like, oh no. Then they find out the hard way. They break a hip, whatever, like he was just like, no, I can do this. And they're like, no, like you're missing a whole ass half of your brain over here. Like, just take it easy.
Sir, a rod went through your brain.
Yeah.
Calm
Let's
down.
ease into some shit. Okay. And so he survived overall. Like they caught this abscess, which probably would have killed him. Somehow it all worked out. He survived. He was still like very weak, but he went to go live with his parents for a bit of time, and
like to kind of like build back his strength and stuff. And he was able to like work on a farm and like work with the cattle and whatever, and feed horses, whatever he needed to do to like keep himself busy. But he had to like work to get him like kind of like physical therapy basically to like
he had some time he needed to heal. He really had to take it easy. And like everybody obviously was so surprised by like how much he was talking and like how normal he was for like someone who just had their brain like turned into an upside down funnel. And his mom was the first person to notice that, like, yes, to like a stranger, he's very normal and things seem fine. But like for us, he's
a little off.
He's a little off. Like his memory is not all there. He has some loss. But like, nobody would really notice unless you really know him well, like we do.
Yeah. So because of this, like, this very traumatic brain injury, he is probably, and like to survive it, he's probably the first case of a traumatic brain injury to suggest the brain's role in determining personality, and that damage to specific parts of the brain might induce specific personality changes. But the extent and the nature and the duration of those changes in his personality are kind of difficult to figure out, like what's true and what's not. There's only a handful of sources that give direct information about what he was like either before or after the incident. The mental changes published after his death were much more he'll eventually die later on, but obviously
not just because it was the 1800s. No.
God, my cats are like fighting each other right now.
Oh no. Is it raining still?
Yeah.
Oh.
They're like going crazy. The mental changes published after his death were much more dramatic than anything that was actually reported while he was alive. Oh. And there's few sources that are explicit about the periods of his life to which the various descriptions of him, which vary widely in their implied level of functional impairment, are meant to apply. So like, in other words, the stories about him becoming this is like the thing that people think about him is that he became some foul-mouthed, unreliable vagrant after his accident. And those accounts aren't necessarily 100% accurate.
Right.
I mean, it is documented that he did have a change in his personality. You're saying his mom was like, he's not 100% the same guy. And like, the crew he worked with and like the railroad company were like, you're not quite on the level right now.
Yeah,
Like take some time off. Like,
Yeah.
and so it's documented that he did have changes in his personality, but according to Malcolm McMillan, an honorary professor at the Melbourne School of Psychology Sciences and the author of An Odd Kind of Fame, Stories of Phineas Gage, he wrote a whole ass book about Phineas
Oh my
Gage.
God.
The personality change might have only lasted for a few years. So
Yeah.
it's like his brain needed to recalibrate. He needed to like kind of relearn some of the social stuff, and because
Fucking duh, dude.
yeah, I mean, come on, if this is like the worst thing,
Half a teacup of his brain fell onto the floor
on the fucking floor, and the doctor's like, throw it out, you know, like what are we gonna do
he's
with
like
it? Not to
Yeah.
mention the shit that the brain that came out when he was like
in the
when
explosion.
in the explosion when the javelin shot through his fucking head.
It's fucking pinned to the ground 80 feet away.
It's all dirty now too. We can't like
Yeah, we can't wash it off.
pat it back in there.
Put it on ice and take it to the hospital.
No, can't do that. And so it's like this picture was like painted of him as being this kind of like gnarly dude afterwards, and maybe he was just like saying fucking pussy and tits all the time, and everybody's like, whoa, Phineas, why don't you just like go work in the stable for a while, for a couple of years, just hang out, chill, don't go in public, like.
Yeah.
And maybe he was drinking and smoking and fucking and doing whatever.
I would.
But I would too. Like, I would be happy to be alive. I'd be like,
Dude.
I don't give a fuck. I'll fucking party till my dick falls off. I don't care. Like,
dude,
I just survived the worst of the worst.
I know I was some kind of master blaster, but fuck it, dude. I'm not going back to that job. I'm not blasting shit, okay? Except this liver. And you all can
I am
suck
happy
my
to be
dick.
alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can suck my Phineas Gage.
Yeah.
Also, like, there's another picture, like the additionally, he like people are saying he like fell into like this kind of, you know, vagrant, like creepy vibe of this dude, or like a shadow of himself. And there's pictures of him that were taken after the accident. And one of them was found in like 2007. This is like a whole other sidebar, by this vintage photo collector who had no idea who he was.
Oh, wow.
And like, she's like, who's this hot guy?
Yeah.
And thought he was like some sort of like whale hunter, and thought the like rod in the picture
was a
harpoon.
Like, yeah.
And somebody like, she like posted it online, and somebody's like, that's not a like whale hunter. That's Phineas Gage, bitch.
I love the internet.
Anyway, so the pictures of him are fucking hot though, even after his accident. So he's like, and he looks good. He's like put together, like clean shaven, hair is laid. He is looking hella fine. Okay.
He has a full head of hair, and he doesn't even have a
Gorgeous.
full head. You know what I mean?
Good thing, because it's hiding that fucking brain that's still poking out. Okay.
He looks real good.
Yeah.
Like,
I would. Okay.
I would. Also, like, I don't know. It'd be a story, but also he's hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'd want him to be cursing. I like that his new personality is a little edgy.
Yeah. He's kind of like a.
Yeah. He's like a bad boy.
Yeah. But so anyway, nobody really knows. Like, there's all these stories about him, but a lot of them are like from people who didn't even know him, and there's just like not a lot of like solid evidence that he like became this like, you know, Mr. Hyde kind of character. No.
Except for a couple years after his brain injury, but it's like, you think?
Yeah.
Just even just like we were joking about like, oh yeah, I'd be like, fuck this job and stuff. Not just that part of it, but it's like, this man had trauma to his brain. Things are going to change. Mm-hmm. Like,
I mean, and the event in and of itself is like a trauma. Like, and that he was like conscious for a guy finger trapping his brain, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, dude.
Like,
it's
that
so,
shit's wild.
But it is fascinating because, you know, you do hear about, and this is like, this man has been studied for since this happened about the relationship of like personality and like brain trauma, and we still study it today, but you hear stories, and this is real, and it's related to this, where like people will have a brain tumor and the only reason that it's found is because there's like a big swing in their personality, and everyone's like, they are not themselves, they're not, you know, it's not drugs, it's not alcohol, it's not stress, whatever, like just suddenly something's off,
something's going on. Yeah.
and they'll find like a mass in their brain.
Yep.
And it's like, that's so wild to me. Like, it's unbelievable to me.
And so the reason that his case has become now in modern times still such a fixture in, you know, neuroscience and the study of the brain and how it relates to personality is because this is the first documented survival of such a traumatic brain injury, like I was saying, and that there was, even if it was just for a couple of years, there was a marked difference in his personality and his behavior. However, the fact that Gage eventually went on to work as a long-distance stagecoach driver in Chile, a job that required considerable planning skills and focus, is a testament to the fact that he eventually returned to being a reliable, sociable, and above all, fully able to handle a whole ass stagecoach and 6 horses. So not only was he able to regain and kind of rehabilitate his brain, and with whatever, like just kind of by sheer will of getting back into, you know, working or whatever he needed to do to survive, because it's the 1800s. He was eventually able to like hold down a very complicated and demanding job for several years after this accident. So in a foreign country where you have to have, you know, you have to understand different social structure and different, you know, customs and stuff, and another language and whatever. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. I think after that, he even moved, like he was like flourishing, and he moved to San Francisco.
Yeah.
And that's where he eventually would die. He died in 1860 at the age of 36. And it's likely he was having seizures and stuff, and it was likely due to his head trauma, obviously, because like, you know, I mean, especially at the time, but like you can't just like they
didn't have MRI machines back then. They couldn't possibly know what the long-term effects of something like this would be.
And like they fixed it as best they could in the 1800s, but like, you know, the way they fixed it, rooting around in there, that's not, you know, it's probably not the best way to do it. And like, I mean, they still did a good job, but it's like a coincidence.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay. This is also a thing we wanted to talk about quickly, because we mentioned that there was like a crossover with P.T. Barnum.
Oh, yeah.
And Phineas Gage. Oh, first, before we get into this, have we figured out if that's where Gages come from? Did you look that up?
No.
You know the Gages, like the big ear piercings, and how it's like a big hole in your head? Are you Googling it?
I am.
Oh, good. I hope I'm right. Because we were talking about doing this, and I was like, is that where that comes from? But I was sincere. And now I'm kind of joking, but also I want to know.
Okay.
Like, why is it called a gauge? And I hope it's from Phineas Gage. What?
Oh my God, you're so funny.
Oh, I thought you found something.
No, I'm just cracking up.
Okay. Well, while you look at that,
okay,
I'm going to say, okay, P.T. Barnum. So I guess we mentioned, okay, you said that we talked about Phineas Gage in a Patreon episode about swearing. And then someone, I think the person that asked us to do this topic, said we may have mentioned him a little bit in the P.T. Barnum episode, which who's to say? But before Phineas moved to Chile, he tried to get his railroad job back, like you said, kind of, and they were like, your incident report is still like fresh, Like I think we're still finding fragments of your skull on the job site, so I think maybe we'll pass. No, he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So enter P.T. Barnum, who brought Gage to the Barnum's American Museum in New York City. So he came down. He was essentially a sideshow act. So people like paid to see him with his rod. Like he would sit there and be on display, and people would pay and kind of weave around all the spectacles, and he'd just be sitting there with the rod and be like, "This went through my head," and he would get paid for it. And he quickly became disinterested in it and moved on because he was a very smart man, and like this was like not beneath him, but just it was exploitative, and I feel like he just didn't like it, you know?
He's like, people are not that interested also. Like, I want to like go make an honest living, so I'm done.
Yeah. So I found an ad from the Barnum's American Museum announcing his arrival, and it says, "Distinguished arrivals. The two wonders of the world have arrived and have taken rooms at the Union House, where they intend to exhibit themselves for a few days only. General Washburn, the living dwarf skeleton, the only one ever exhibited, is 28 years of age, weighing only 48 pounds. He plays the violin in Old Bull style, also will sing songs and accompanies himself on the violin. In addition to the above, Mr. Phineas Gage, the person who had a crowbar blown through his head some years since, will be present and exhibit himself, also the identical bar that burst through his head. For particulars, see small bills. Admittance 12, 1 to 2 cents. Children under 12, 1 to 4 cents. Hours of exhibition from 10 to 10.
Well, yeah, this guy... Phineas Gage, ear gauges, by the way, are not from Phineas Gage.
Oh.
They're spelled Gauge.
God damn it.
And they've been around since ancient Egyptian times, so.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, this guy, Phineas Gage, man, I feel like, I don't know. It's just, it's a kind of a sad story, but also good for him for living almost a dozen years after this shit happened. It's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I wonder if he had a lot of, I mean, obviously he had seizures. I wonder if they were like ongoing and just kept getting more and more frequent. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I assumed.
I think there was like, it was like some sort of buildup of like
fluid.
Of like scar tissue or something in his brain from this. Like it just like kept getting more and more.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So that's is
sad.
Eventually what killed him.
That's the sad part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is that like
it was like a you know, he was living on borrowed time basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like the quality, you know, like just starts declining so drastically. But it is amazing, like in that time period that he was able to go and live a life, you know, on his own. Like he was able to get a job and support himself and stuff during a time when I feel like that was not what we let people who were like who had disabilities, like we did not let them do that, you know?
1,000%.
So I love that he like went to PT Barnum for like a couple days, made some money, and then was like, fuck this. I don't like this, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just going to go get a regular job.
Yeah. And I think like, it's interesting the way the kind of anecdotal evidence that is put on him that is not necessarily true. There's the reason another part of the reason why they teach his case in med school and, you know, whatever classes they teach this in is for research purposes, for students to understand that not all of the evidence in a case necessarily is, you need to go back to like original sources. And if there's no original sources, then you can't necessarily make conclusions about a case based on like anecdotal evidence, quote unquote evidence. And so Phineas Gage is a case that they teach a lot still because it's like from so long ago, and what is known about it is remarkable, yet it is also important to make sure that people understand that the kind of idea behind the personality change in a brain injury is different across the board, probably because this is like also happened since, like, people have had like shit go in their brain, like you know, rebar at a construction site, whatever. This kind of shit happens.
A screw, a nail.
Yeah, totally. And this can happen, and people can survive it. It's not common, but you know, but they want students to understand that like you need to know that like a personality change isn't like all that it's like chalked up to be, based on these like, you know, the idea that he was like some foul-mouthed vagrant or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's just like a kind of story that's told about him. You have to like look at evidence and like the time, and that kind of context is important in a case like this. So that's like another big reason they teach it. So it's a pretty wild story, and man.
Yeah. It's interesting that they don't have like, you know, today you would maybe be able to look at like, to look at the extent of a brain injury. Like you could look at like things like, retaking a driver's test, or things that you've done throughout your life that like haven't seen many changes or whatever, or you know, your reading comprehension level. You know, like there's things that they could look at and be like, okay, yeah, you could do this, and then they could test you again.
But the fact that he was able to do such a like highly skilled job later on in life is like, that's the test.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Also, his brain his skull was exhumed by his family and given to I think like Harvard or something, like one of the schools, and along with the rod that he carried with him like as a constant companion.
Yeah, it's on display somewhere.
Yeah. Where is that on? I can't remember.
I don't know.
I meant to put it in the notes, but I forgot. Anyway, so yeah, his brain, his skull is out there, so you could see like the hole in his skull and all that shit.
Yep.
Wild times.
Oh my God. I don't know. Is it at the Warren Anatomical Museum?
It's somewhere.
Okay. The Smithsonian has a thing on it too, so maybe it makes its way around to different places. It's on display at the Warren Anatomical Museum on the Harvard Medical School campus.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I feel like there's so much that we didn't even get into too, that's like about, you know, the type of brain injury he had and like how it's specifically helps students today. But we like generally covered it. It's pretty fascinating, like that this happened at a time when like we've advanced so far.
People were just dying from colds, so the fact that this guy survived a whole fucking rod through his head is pretty remarkable.
But it also shows you how little we still know about the brain. Because like we haven't even advanced. We have advanced far beyond that, but really not that. You know, like we still don't know so much about the brain.
Yeah.
So it's like, interesting.
Well, we still let people play football, so and knowing that it's like actively damaging their brains.
Oh my God.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. All right.
Well, that's all I got. Follow us on social media at DTFU Podcast everywhere, and go to our website at dtfupodcast.com.
Ooh. Next week is our 6th anniversary episode.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
6 years. We've been doing this for 6 years.
I can't even
believe it.
No.
I can't.
I feel like I've had a traumatic brain injury. I don't even remember what we even talk about ever.
It's true. It's true. It just
I did remember something
flies out of my brain like Phineas Gage's rod.
Yeah. I did remember something today, and I told someone, oh, I didn't even remember anything that great. There was someone at the pottery studio, and they were a geometry teacher. And I was like, God. Oh. And then someone else asked them, like, oh, do you teach it differently? Because of like, what is the new way of teaching? It's like core. What is it?
Common Core.
Common Core. They're like, oh, does Common Core change how you teach geometry? And he was like, no, like geometry is
angles
just geometry.
Are angles.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, yeah. I guess like, you know, I don't know. I made some Pythagoras reference, and he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I'm very smart.
I know all about the Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah. I was like, oh, who? Pythagoras? Yeah, I know.
Did you know he had a cult?
Did you know he was a real shithead to a lot of people and made them join his cult and wouldn't let them look at him in the face or talk to him? And then he died.
Probably did some weird stuff with his penis, too.
Yeah. Did you know he did weird penis stuff? Yeah, Pythagoras. Pythagoras.
Killed one of his followers? Yeah, that's true.
Well.
Over a goddamn math problem. Anyway.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, guys. And I think is there anything else we want to say? I don't know.
No. Tell a friend. Okay.
Tell a friend. Rate us 5 stars. All the places.
Yeah.
All right. Stay excellent to yourselves.
And each other.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.